Vasya, keeper of the old ways. Once, at the edge of a vast, snow-bound forest, a girl was born beneath a winter moon. Her mother, a woman with wild eyes and a whispering voice, was said to speak with the spirits who guarded hearth, field, and forest. So, Vasya was born different, a child of the old ways. In the shadows near the fire, a small spirit watched her birth. The hearth domovoi curled quietly by the flames, worried for the babe. Winds beyond the forest had begun to change. Vasya's mother did not linger after her daughter's birth. She soon slipped into silence, leaving her husband, Pyotr, in mourning, and her children without a mother's touch. Seasons turned. Her father, though still haunted by love, took another wife, but she brought no warmth to Vasya or her brothers, only sharp glances and pious judgment. The hearth domovoi watched, its gaze darker now, as if it knew the joy which once filled the house was slipping away. Vasya was a happy child, quick, curious, untamed. While her stepmother's piety kept her inside, Vasya ran freely through forest and field, laughing with the wind and whispering greetings to spirits unseen. At home, it was not her stepmother, but the hearth domovoi, who watched her with approval, nodding from its perch by the flames. She left it crusts of bread and tender thanks, and it kept the fire warm and the night at bay, as it had for her mother before her. Vasya lived among her brothers, strong, silent, bound to duty and the ways of men. They spoke of horses and harvests, of hunting and protection, never seeing what Vasya saw, never feeling what stirred in the very air around them. They cared for her in their way, but their lives were anchored to the solid and the seen. And in this house, where her brothers guarded against dangers they knew, but not those unknown to them, Vasya felt the sharp ache of loneliness. In the quiet evenings, when shadows stretched long and the wind sighed against the shutters, Vasya would crouch by the hearth, whispering to the small spirit curled near the flames. The domovoi, furred and sharp-eyed, blinked at her with ancient patience, accepting her offerings of bread and thanks. Though no one else in the house saw it, Vasya felt its presence as surely as the fire's warmth, a steadfast and loyal companion. In the dim light of the stables, another spirit kept watch, small, whiskered, and clever, with straw tangled in his fur. When Vasya slipped inside at dusk to feed the horses, she always left a crust of bread on a post. The domovoi would nod solemnly, his presence keeping the horses calm and the shadows from creeping too close. He had tended this stable since the beginning, a silent guardian of beasts and wood and straw. But Vasya's wonder was not bound by walls. In the deep forest, where birches leaned close and shadows danced, she often glimpsed another spirit, tall and still as an old tree, with eyes green as moss and bark for skin. The leshy watched her with neither welcome nor malice, simply part of the woods, as ice and snow were part of winter. At each encounter, Vasya lowered her head in respect, knowing she was a guest in its realm. One winter, a figure came to their door, Father Constantine, wrapped in heavy robes, his voice smooth and sure, he spoke of sin and salvation, of fear and obedience. He praised the light, but cast long shadows. In the firelit hush of Vasya's home, his gaze swept the room and paused, uneasy, as if he sensed what she could see, and what the others could not. Their stepmother gazed at him, enraptured, while the hearth domovoi shrank deeper into the shadows. As the priest's sermons filled the church and the villagers crossed themselves with growing fervour, the old offerings ceased. No bread at the hearth, no crumbs left for the stable, no whispers to the woods. Vasya's hearth domovoi, once plump and bright-eyed, grew thin and pale, its face creased in sorrow. The stable domovoi curled dejectedly in the straw, and the leshy's branches drooped in silent despair. The forest was quieter, lonelier, as fear replaced wonder. Her father, Pyotr, still loved Vasya, loved the wildness in her, so like her mother's, but fear crept into his heart as surely as snow through a cracked door in winter. The priest's words stirred old worries, and his new wife's whisperings hummed with insistence. What future could there be for a girl who spoke with shadows? At night, the hearth spirit watched them both, the father who tightened his grip and the daughter who slipped through his fingers like water. One night, in the deepest part of the forest, even as other spirits dimmed, another presence stirred. Medved, ancient, wild, a great monstrous bear whose sole source of food was fear. It grew strong as the villagers' unease spread across the land. The priest, Constantine, felt its pull and went to the woods. The bear commanded him to banish the girl they called Vasya, the one without fear, from the village. Pride made him bold, and he agreed. An evil alliance was made. In the same woods, on the same night, another spirit stirred. Vasya, always drawn to the forest, stepped beyond the edge of her father's fields and found him waiting, Morosko, the winter king. His cloak shimmered with frost, his eyes pale and cold. He spoke only once, his voice cutting as wind over snow. The bear wakes, girl. Fear feeds him. Guard your heart, for soon no one else will. Then he was gone, vanishing like breath in the frozen air. In the village and in Vasya's home, fear continued to grow, heavy as snow. Constantine's sermons rang louder, his gaze sharper, his words seeding doubt in every heart. The villagers became wary of Vasya's wildness, of her strange and solitary ways, of the endless hours spent wandering in the woods. And in the chaos, Medved swelled in strength, for fear was his feast. At the hearth, the domovoi flickered faintly, head bowed, its warmth nearly gone. One by one, the old guardians faded. In the stable, the little domovoi, who once kept horses calm and safe, lay curled in a bed of straw, its whiskers drooping, its breath shallow as dying embers, while the horses grew ever more restless in their stalls. In the forest, no eyes watched from branches, no leshy stirred in the twilight. Only the hearth spirit lingered, faint and flickering, bound to Vasya still, though almost spent. The village murmurs grew, whispers sharp and unrelenting. strange girl, wild girl, witch's child. In the dim glow of the hearth, Pyotr wrestled with love and fear, and into that struggle slid Konstantine's voice. Its darkness cloaked in piety. You must protect her soul. Send her away before it is too late. For the bear's shadow cloaked him now, unseen but welcome in the hidden corners of his heart. Outside, the spirits had fallen silent, but inside the house, talk grew fevered. The stepmother's voice joined Konstantine's, insistent and shrill. The girl is dangerous. Send her away. She frightens even her own kin. And Pyotr, worn by grief and doubt, listened. His love for Vasya warred with their incessant dread until his gaze turned cold. Before he could act, Vasya slipped away, knowing that love in this house had been twisted to something darker. But as the shadows lengthened and Medved's hunger threatened to consume all, Pyotr's fear gave way to something stronger, love. He could not save Vasya by locking her away. He could not silence what lived in her blood. So, at dusk, he saddled his horse and rode into the heart of the forest. There, without plea or protest, Pyotr offered himself to the bear. Love for love, life for life. His death was quiet, but it echoed through the air and through Vasya's soul. She raced through the trees to the sound of her pounding heart, and in a hushed clearing, Vasya faced the bear at last. Medved loomed, terrible and triumphant, and beside him stood Konstantin, his eyes bright with fear and pride alike, a puppet who believed himself master. But Vasya did not tremble. She understood the fear that fed him, and it was not just the villagers, but Konstantine's, her stepmother's, her father's, even her own. You are nothing without the fear we give you, Vasya said, her voice as steady as stone. At her words, the bear recoiled, its strength evaporating like mist at dawn, and he retreated in defeat. Konstantine's voice ebbed, lost beneath the weight of her words, as he too went the way of the bear. Hidden among the trees, Morosko watched, cold and still as ever, then was gone, and the forest exhaled. All that remained was the softly falling snow, and Vasya standing alone. At home, the hearth domovoi stirred, a flame rekindled. In the stable, a whiskered figure shifts in the straw, and in the woods beyond, the trees seemed to breathe again. Her brothers remained, steady in their earthly ways, but the pall her stepmother had brought was gone, for soon after Pyotr's death, she left that place, her power over the household no more. And Vasya, a keeper of the old ways, was finally free to walk between worlds, bound to neither, belonging to both. The end. Set in the 14th century, this was a time when Slavic pagan traditions were still alive in rural Russia, even as Orthodox Christianity became dominant. Folk beliefs centered around household spirits like the domovoi, nature spirits like the lishi, and seasonal cycles of life and death. Villagers lived with a profound respect for the unseen world, making offerings to ensure harmony with both benign and malevolent spirits. The period saw the rise of duvuvery, dual faith, where outward Christian observance coexisted with private adherence to older pagan customs. This tension between old and new, between Christianity and folklore, forms the backdrop of Vasya's story, a cultural crossroads where magic, faith, fear, and survival intertwine. The Bear and the Nightingale is a richly atmospheric folktale-style novel by Katherine Arden. It is set in medieval Russia and tells the story of Vasilisa Vasya Petrovna, a headstrong young woman with a rare gift. She can see and communicate with the ancient spirits of her homeland. As Christianity tightens its grip on her village, the old ways are cast aside, weakening the protective spirits and allowing darker forces to rise. Chief among them, Medved, the bear, a creature of fear and death. Vasya's tale is one of quiet rebellion and resilience, as she stands alone to protect her people from a danger they no longer believe in, and to preserve the fading balance between old traditions and new faith.